Good afternoon, everyone. Councilmember Dustin Hill is Chair of the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I want to call this meeting to order. Been joined by my colleagues, Councilmember to my left, Councilmember Norwood, to my immediate right, Councilmember Boone, followed by Councilmember Lewis, followed by Councilmember Waits, and we do constitute a quorum. I will make a motion to adopt the agenda, just they don't require amendments, just so everyone knows. APD's presentation we've had to flex, and it'll be at our next, their quarterly will be at our next PSLA meeting, and then we also have one walk-in a day to consider. So with those notes, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Lewis. And we have also been joined by our Vice Chair, Councilmember Amos. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open.
Waits says aye.
Thank you. Please vote. Councilmember Amos? Oh. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays is adopted. We've also been joined by City Council President Doug Shipman. All right, I'll now make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Is there a second? Second. Second by Councilmember Lewis. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Minutes are approved. Colleagues, we now come to our 2023 Public Safety and Legal Administration Goals and Objectives, which you've received a copy of. If there are no comments or changes on those, I will make a motion to approve those goals and objectives. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Norwood. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Those goals and objectives for this year are approved. We will now move to public comment. First up, we have Henri Jordan.
Everyone that's here. How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Psalms 13, chapter 2nd verse. The distance between four occurrences of how long, punctuated with question marks, and the confident and joyful song at the end is covered with only with prayer and trust. People seek to steal the income Jesus created through me, that Christ created for his glory, to help the people from the plans of the enemy in us, around us. Sin is the enemy in us that promotes the power of the enemy around us. James Griff, evil promotes evil. And suddenly there was a great earthquake, so that the foundations of prison were shaken, and immediately all the doors were opened, and everyone's bands were loosed. Acts 16, chapter 26 verse. The earthquake would have been meaningless had not the jail and prisoners heard Paul's testimony in prayer and song. Hope is in Jesus and is a blessing. For the oppression of the poor, for the sign of the needy, now will I arise, said the Lord. I will set him in safety from him that puffeth at him. Psalms 12, chapter 5th verse. The oppression of the righteous by the wicked is especially felt in the realm of vain and proud speech. But the righteous find comfort in the pure and valuable word of God. Oppression pushes me or sometimes others to seek to obey and praise Jesus. Now, therefore, why tempt ye God to put a yoke upon the neck of the disciples, which neither our fathers nor we were able to bear? Acts 15, chapter 10 verse. Peter begins by relating how God had clearly saved Cornelius and the other Gentiles with him apart from any works of the law. Moses promoted the law, but Jesus promotes grace and truth. We need Christ more than he needs us. He has the real power over Satan than we have.
Excuse me. Next up, DeJuan Robinson.
Afternoon, Council. I'm coming here to you today about two matters. Our mayor said that we are in the year of the youth. If you guys not aware, Mr. Doug Shipman, that our Park and Rec director was given the option to be fired or to resign. And when you're talking about someone that has the ear of the youth, we just come off a successful Midnight League basketball where, you know, you guys gave a proclamation to him and his staff. And we have to be very careful because that can lead to a public safety issue. When you have someone that's dealing with the youth and has been for 30 years, has respect for the youth, now that he's gone and you're putting someone in that position that may not have the level of respect of the connectivity to the community, we may have some youth violence out here that we already have an issue with. My second thing that I want you guys to adhere to is that oftentimes we have council members that pass legislation. And then when they get to a vote, most of you guys say, oh, I didn't know that was the intention of the paperwork. We have to start paying attention because there's some unethical thing that's going on. And it's coming out of some of these committees, Mr. Shipman, as you know, I've expressed my concern with some of your appointments that have been in those seats past the duration of time if we're supposed to be rotating. And we have to be very careful because our city is going on a downslide when it comes to integrity. You guys may think that we're up on it, but we're not. And it's a sad day when you can't trust council members to be ethical and transparent and other city officials that have the respect and the integrity from the community. But when there are collusion going on that is compromising you guys that are above board and want to do things the right way. So I just urge you to pay attention when a paper is being presented to be passed. Start paying attention when you guys won't be saying, oh, I didn't know that. We can't go for that. You decided to run for this office. You decided to do that. So stop saying, oh, I didn't know that was his intention. I didn't know that was her intention. Read the paper. Get your staff to read the paper. You ask legal for everything else, ask legal. Because we got to stop doing that because there's some wrongdoings going on out here. And it's coming from your colleagues you send to the left and the right too. And we got to just stop this because people are dying in the streets. People home are being taken from them through your paperwork, using the court system and the solicitor office. Yeah, they're doing all that. We got to stop that, and we got to stop playing games. We got to start holding them accountable. Read your paperwork. Read your paperwork, please, and thank you.
That concludes public comment. Before we move to our presentations, we do have one communication, and the appointee is here. So we will hear that, 23C 5018.
A communication from Ann Phillips, President, Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, APAB, submitting the appointment of Mr. Kelvin Williams to serve on the Atlanta Citizen Review Board in the Neighborhood Planning Unit, Group A through F category. This appointment is for a term of 3 years.
Mr. Williams, if you'll please come to the podium, tell us a little bit about yourself and your willingness to serve.
Right, good afternoon. My name is Kelvin Williams. I've been in Atlanta over 35, I guess about 37 years. I graduated from Morris Brown College, have a BA in political science, been here since I graduated from college. I worked in the IT consulting field for the federal government, currently working with the CDC. I'm a senior business analyst, project manager, been doing that for over 17 years, and currently living in Buckhead, and I applied for the NPUB representative to represent NPU A through F to serve on the Atlanta Citizen Review Board. Ever since I was in college and being there and seeing the city grow, I felt that that could be a way that I could help and do my part to make the city better in certain areas. And I'm really looking forward to learning and also being a valuable asset to the board and to the city.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Not, I'll make a motion, or Councilmember Lewis, go ahead.
I want to say thank you, Mr. Williams. Everything you just said talked about Atlanta being a group project. And how long have you lived in Buckhead?
I've been in Buckhead, lived in Buckhead about, 6 years?
Okay, I appreciate you, and I appreciate your commitment to
Thank you.
this group project. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Any other colleagues with questions or comments? I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Boone. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. There's a favorable vote. So this will move on to the Committee on Council and then the full council, but you will not need to reappear. And if this is successful, then this clerk will be in contact
Thank you,
with you
sir.
for further instruction, okay?
All right, thank you.
And now going back to our presentations. First up, we will have a quarterly update of the Atlanta Municipal Court. Chief Judge Christopher Portis.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. I am Chris Portis, the Chief Judge for the Municipal Court of Atlanta, and presenting our first quarter of 2023 to this committee. Just looking here at the first slide, this is just a general overview of the operations and building entrance into the Municipal Court of Atlanta by the general public month over month for calendar year 2022. For the total calendar year from January ending December 31st, a total of 333,551 visitors. That comes out to a monthly average of 27,795. This is a metric that we're still tracking and keeping up with just off the general concerns of the utilization of space, but also as we plan the calendars as well as those caseloads to move individuals not only in and out of the courtrooms, but through the front windows through high traffic times at the court. Moving to the next slide, just a general snapshot of the number of traffic cases filed versus closed for calendar year 2022. A total of 116,000 cases were filed in 2022, the highest month being May, where we had about 16,000 cases, and working to get those all scheduled with an eye towards making sure that we're balancing, again, the traffic as it moves in and out the building throughout the day. Moving forward, the next slide is the criminal case count for calendar year 2022 versus those which were closed in the past calendar year. A total of 11,000 criminal cases were filed. These will account for any case designated as a CR case type. That's anything from a basic ordinance violation and is also inclusive of any of the code and housing violations as well. Moving forward, just comparing 2021 to 2022, 2021 being a first full 12-month cycle as we moved further away from the post-COVID era, if you will, and then looking at what that meant for a difference for the case counts for 2022. 2021 representing 118,000 cases filed, 2022 just short of 128,000. So a bump up of about 10,000 cases. In general, just for perspective, that represents probably about 50 to 60,000 shy of where we would have been in 2019. Obviously, 2020 was a game changer in just not only the number of individuals who were out moving around, but also just interaction with the public in general. We expect that as things continue to return to some normalcy, that these numbers will continue to inch back up to where they were pre-2020. Moving forward to the next slide is the failure to appear count for 2022. For the calendar year ending December the 31st, there were a total of 43,424 cases that went into failure to appear status in that calendar year. If you look out over the total FTA count and compare it to the previous slides of the number of traffic and criminal cases filed, one of the things that we're seeing that has made a substantial difference is the zero tolerance on the FTA cases, in particular in the traffic arena. Right now, we are continuing to follow the strict letter of state law. Those cases that have gone into failure to appear status and are beyond the statutory 30-day window, you're not eligible to clear that license suspension until you actually close that case. That is a little bit different from the COVID timeframe where there was some grace period, and especially before, where you could just walk in, secure that next court date, and also clear that FTA and suspension. Now you actually have to resolve the case with a case disposition to get the Form 912. That has obviously translated into a decrease on the front end of a lot of those traffic FTAs. For the foreseeable future, we will continue to operate that policy to get the word out that appearance in court is mandatory. As we look at calendar year 2022 and compare the number of failure to appears as well as with the cases filed, we still see the trend between the cases filed, the failure to appear rate, somewhat higher than we would like it to be. As we move into June, you can track that previous slide where you continue to see the decrease. Looking at May, where we had a seasonally high number of citations filed inside of a 30-day period, you'll see that that failure to appear rate will track outside of 30 days, and that's generally what we expect for any case appearance, especially for the traffic cases. When a case goes into failure to appear status, there is a 30-day grace period built into state law that allow an individual to come and resolve the FTA without the suspension being placed on the license. We have to send out a postcard for those, but usually that's the lag in the true failure to appear metric is beyond that 30 days. So you can see it tracking to that point from May going into June. Looking at the failure to appear court, and these are dockets that were specifically designed to address solely the FTA for calendar year 2022, a total of 20,137 FTAs were closed. That represents roughly 1 out of 2 for the entire case count of calendar year 2022. But for us on the court side, especially the administration, there is an asterisk next to that, because at any time the universe of cases that are in FTA status, of course, spans beyond just a 12-month period. It's not unlikely, for instance, to see cases coming in into the FTA division to have a case resolved that will be from before that calendar year, for instance, 2019 or 2020, to have an FTA resolved. So just some general information. One of the questions that arose after the most recent quarterly presentation this past fall, is there any loss of revenue for unresolved FTAs or cases that are bound over? The general answer for that, at least from the court standpoint, is no. Any judge at any level has an absolute responsibility to be impartial, and every person charged with an offense enjoys the presumption of innocence until proven otherwise. Due process entitles a person to an impartial and disinterested hearing officer, and that's both in the civil and criminal case type. That means that every person enjoys the assurance that the judge at any level has not predisposed or predetermined their case. Therefore, the judge must view any unresolved case that is yet to come to court with the view that it is worth zero, because the presumed innocent defendant owes nothing until they're proven otherwise. Looking forward to another issue or topic that came up, what is a bind-over? And this is an often asked question. A bind-over is when a case is transferred from the municipal court to a county court for a jury trial. The City of Atlanta has jurisdiction lines inside of both Fulton and DeKalb, so anytime a case, whether it's traffic or otherwise, comes in that needs to be bound over, a defendant may request that, and it gets sent to the DeKalb or the Fulton County State Courts most often. Next question, why would a case be bound over? Well, a defendant exercising his or her right. The most common reason is because the defendant has requested a trial by jury. All defendants charged with an offense that has a possible punishment of up to 12 months in jail are guaranteed a jury trial by the Constitution. And before a defendant makes a final decision in a case, they must be informed of this right, no matter how minor the charge. So even when somebody is getting ready to enter a plea in court, the very last thing that they're questioned on is whether or not they understand their rights, that they're waiving their right to a trial. And they also have to fill out a plea record and form reflecting this information. Second reason, which is not as common but is prevalent in some cases, is that state law requires that certain offenses issued inside the city limits must be brought to the municipal court. But sometimes, when the offense makes its way to court, it's discovered that there are more facts than originally understood. If the prosecutor elects to upgrade a charge to one that the municipal court does not have jurisdiction, that case must be bound over. And a good example of that is discharging a firearm in violation of the city ordinance. The case may come to court, and by information of the police officer or an interested party or even a victim, it may find out that the discharge of the firearm was actually in response to an argument. Maybe it was a husband, a wife, or girlfriend, or just a group of people. In that instance, the discharge in the firearm may be a little bit more serious. It actually may be an assault charge, which the municipal court doesn't have jurisdiction. If the prosecutor makes the election to upgrade that charge, because the court doesn't have jurisdiction, it must execute a bind-over. And what you see on the screen is an example of just that, the bind-over form that would be signed by the judge. And last, however, some cases cannot be bound over because the right to a jury trial does not attach. And for example, those are city ordinance violations. While the maximum fine does match a general misdemeanor, the maximum time to serve is typically 6 months or less, and those cases must be handled at the municipal court, and there's generally no right to have a bind over in those instances. So let's just look at what that looks like for a year like 2022. If we look at the total number of traffic cases filed per month, and we take a look at the number of bindovers per month, what we see is, on average, month over month, a total of about 6% of those cases are bound over. 94% of those cases are maintained and handled at the Municipal Court of Atlanta. And similar piece of information, just like with the traffic, looking at the criminal cases, for example, for calendar year 2022, looking at the number of cases filed month over month in comparison to the number of bindovers month over month, total number of cases that were bound over were 2.4%, meaning that greater than 93% of those cases were resolved at the Municipal Court of Atlanta. Warrants signed and generated. So in calendar year 2022, a total of 33,279 warrants were generated. A total of 21,070 were actually signed. The first question that'll probably come up, well, why would a warrant be generated but not signed? That's a great question. It is possible that in some instances, in between the warrant being generated and signed, for instance, the defendant has made exceptional circumstances known to the court as to why they didn't appear, or in some instances, the case is resolved prior to the warrant being executed. One of the more common reasons that you'll see that a warrant is generated and not signed, it may not have enough information on the face of the warrant for it to be inputted and transmitted to the warrant team. And on the next slide, or the slide after next, you'll see just some basic identifiers that have to be on the face of a warrant. Also, some charges are not eligible for failure to appear warrants due to the nature of the charge. So, and many times you'll see where a warrant may have been generated in a case, but ultimately after review was decidedly not signed. Looking at the next slide, this is just a graphic of the information that you've seen on the previous slides, the number of warrants signed in comparison to FTAs and FTAs closed. This is one especially after COVID that we've been keeping an eye on. You see at the bottom part of the year where these numbers start to trend very, very close. For the administrative side of the court, this is where we would ideally like to see, because that means that closed FTAs, warrants being signed, and FTAs are having some impact on the actual behavior of individuals, not only coming to court, but resolving those cases. Again, one of the things that we're running now, especially with the traffic cases, remains that zero tolerance policy for failure to appear. So another question that may come up or came up after the last meeting, what are the basic steps for a GCIC active FTA warrant? And these are very basic steps because I can assure you that this is a very detailed, latent process that is undergone for each and every case. But in general, what you'll see happen is a defendant will fail to appear. The judge will generate and review the warrant. The judge will then sign the warrant and send that to the court's warrants team. The court's warrant team will then perform a certain set of steps required by the GCIC rules and assemble what's called a warrant packet. That warrant packet is then physically sent to the APD warrant team for placement upon GCIC, and once a hit is confirmed on an active warrant, it must be validated within 10 minutes. And remember, this is happening roadside in many instances, so there's a very short window of time in which the validation must occur. That is why that must be handled by a 24/7 team. And once the warrant is validated, the person is taken into custody and that warrant is flagged. APD will then contact the corrections team to go pick up that individual to take them to the Atlanta City Jail, and then the court warrant team will complete the final flagging to take the warrant off of GCIC as inactive. On the screen also you'll see what the basic warrant looks like. The warrant is a unified form of both the affidavit and the warrant itself. Those yellow arrows are the basic identifiers that are required for a warrant to be placed on GCIC. Without those, it is a non-starter. So when we go back to warrant generation versus actually signed and uploaded, this would be one of the reasons why a judge would not sign and send the warrant down. Further general information, why does the court need a law enforcement partner to place warrants on GCIC? First, most basic answer is the system is run by the GBI's GCIC unit, and they say so. This is something that the court, as well as the APD team, undergo an annual audit on. The second reason is to paraphrase from Hamilton's Federalist 78, and that is, by design, the court system is dependent upon the other branches of government because it bears neither purse nor sword. In very simple words, that means that the court decides cases and signs papers. Those papers mean nothing unless and until they are executed and acted upon. Another question may come up, so why can't the court just put up the warrants on their own? Again, the system is run by the GBI GCIC unit, and that's what they say, but also, two, more importantly, an active warrant must be placed on GCIC under a law enforcement originating agency identifier to signal to other law enforcement agencies that the person should be apprehended. Now, that's not to say that the court doesn't have an ORI like most courts, but that's different than a law enforcement agency's ORI. That wraps up our quarterly presentation. As always, I am happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chief Judge Portis. Colleagues, if you have any questions or comments for our Chief Judge, please indicate with your screen. First up is Councilmember Norwood.
Yes, Chief Judge. We talked months ago about reviewing the signature bonds and the offenses that should and should not have a signature bond. Could you please report back to us next meeting some thoughts about that, some guidelines that we may take into consideration?
Absolutely, and I'll go a step further, Councilmember. I know I've talked to you about it, and I'll stand on my statements. I am prepared to provide any ideas, even if it is a short-term solution. One of the things that we are seeing is that there is a gap. I know that a lot of the folks who come through our jail are there for very minor offenses, but I think it would be good just to take a look at the mechanism of how fast an individual carte blanche is released solely based on charge. There is a significant lack of opportunity for us to take a specific look at when an individual has been charged with, their history, to make sure that we're not missing the opportunity to stop something before it gets worse. Minor offenses, but they do provide some breaker. And I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to sit on the in-custody calendar. One of the judges was out in an emergency, and there was a gentleman there who had no less than 5 signature bond City of Atlanta charges within the last 2 years. And between that time, he had committed a felony of armed robbery in another jurisdiction. For none of those offenses had he ever come back to court on the City of Atlanta charges after being released. And that's not to say that we're going to stop everybody, but we can at least slow down some of these instances, especially where it is something that just needs a second look. Speaking with my folks over at Corrections, our partners there, we have sent our pretrial unit back over to the jail to begin to provide an advisory position to help them with evaluating some of these cases. But to your question, I'd be happy to revisit that and provide that insight.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Judge.
Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you, Chief Justice. Chief, in a way to prevent us locking people up because they just can't afford it, right? Because a lot of these offenses are petty, what we would consider jaywalking, eviction. Are some of the failure to appear is also like evictions?
No, evictions or
county.
dispossessory proceedings; those are handled in the county.
Okay. Okay. So a lot of the signature bonds are for like jaywalking, right?
Jaywalking, and that's a great question because we got that one last week. We were asked to look at the numbers on jaywalking and specifically, and one of the things I'll tell anybody, the City of Atlanta is not in the business of citing people generally for jaywalking. I can stand on that. The entire time that I have been at the City of Atlanta Municipal Court, I have never seen a defendant in court because they had a jaywalking charge only. Now, I've seen somebody in court because they had disorderly conduct, because they had drug possession or possession of drug paraphernalia, or that the reason that the police came in contact with them was because of a host of other reasons. But I can assure you, council member, that even on behalf of the folks who bring the majority of cases to the court, including the state capitol police, I have never seen somebody with just a jaywalking, and you can rest assured on that. Now, that's not to say that it has not happened, but it would be so few and far in between in the hundreds of thousands of cases that we hear at every 12-month period that it would be statistically not only insignificant, but an anomaly.
So what kind of crimes are they? Because I'll give you an example. I know a person who was locked up because they couldn't pay a $35 ticket at a restaurant, and they went to jail and they had a signature bond. So I know that we lock people up for that. Right. It could be a $35 ticket at a restaurant. So right. What type of crimes are we talking about?
Right, that's a great example. Theft of services would be an example of something that someone would be arrested for. I can tell you that because I handle a vast majority of ordinance charges, again, I don't see the Atlanta Police Department out here locking up, in general, people for $35. Now, I have seen individuals who have a multitude of interactions with Atlanta Police where, for instance, at a particular restaurant on Peachtree Street where it's common for indigent individuals to go in and act turbulent. They have a group of people who they regularly come in contact with. If it's a regular customer that they continuously have to have an issue at the same location, oftentimes to both give the individual as well as the community a break, that person may be arrested. But I hear cases all the time where even someone has shoplifted something for $35 and they were not arrested. I think that, again, with the quantity of cases that we hear, I think you would be very surprised to see how many folks are actually arrested for something like a $35 first-time offense versus given a ticket and the opportunity to come to court.
So I've actually been sitting in some courtrooms, and I've been seeing a lot of people being locked up for not being able to pay at bars.
And
Like,
this
I
is
literally
at the city of Atlanta?
Yes, first, I've been, county. A lot of times it
Okay.
goes to the county.
Okay.
But that, I've been sitting in the courtroom at 6:30 in the morning to 9, for some reason, watching folks getting locked up for $75 at $75 to $35 bar tickets, not even know the names of the bars.
Right.
Because I'm that into it.
Right.
So
I
I'm
can't
wondering-
tell you about places other than where I am. I wouldn't dare to speak on behalf of anybody else, but I can tell you that I am one of the few judges who hears the ordinance violations. Deputy Chief Judge Ward is the other judge who hears the cases that flow from the in-custody calendar out on bond. We share calendars and calendar load very often, and I can tell you that that is not something that I am seeing on a level of frequency where, you know, it would raise the eyebrows. If it were, I mean, I would be very candid about that, but that's not something that I'm seeing on a regular basis.
And just not to, I know I'm hogging the microphone right now. Could you let us, not right now, I can, when you send Councilmember Norwood her request, is there a way you can give me a list of like the crimes that people are getting out for signature bonds for? Because I don't want to lock people up for being poor.
Sure, I don't
know,
either.
If we holding people, if a person can't afford a $75 ticket, they can't afford a $3,000 bond. I want to look at ways in which we can give them community service again, or we bring back weekend jail, just ways to, we can fix two problems at one time, because they ain't going back to court because they can't afford, just like they couldn't afford that $75 ticket, $35 ticket, they can't afford to these. So I want to look at ways in which we can do those. Thank you.
Understood, absolutely.
Excuse me, Chief Judge just had some follow-up information on the, how these FTA warrants and GCIC works. I know, GCIC itself has its own problems, which, state is hopefully trying to work out this legislative session. But when it comes to, know how the process works, and I think you touched at the end that you actually do have, not you, the municipal court, has an ORI number and has the ability to enter these warrants into GCIC, and historically has done so. I know there's a staffing issue
No, that's not correct.
there, and so they're sent to, so what's not correct? You don't have an ORI number?
No, the only time that the municipal court warrants team has placed warrants to be active on GCIC was with the express agreement utilizing the Atlanta Police Department's originating agency identifier. The court's ORI is not the same type of ORI, and it does not do the same thing to place an active warrant upon GCIC. That is a very recent solution that we worked out last year, but even that proved to be too much of a burden for the team that the APD 24-hour unit has to be able to service. For every warrant that goes up, there are a whole host of responsibilities that go along with it. The workload was too high for what they currently had, and that number never exceeded 350 at least. So the idea that the court team placed the warrants upon GCIC to be active, no, that is not something that has been a long-standing situation. It was a part of a stopgap solution that was instituted at the beginning of last year.
So the Municipal Court of Atlanta does not have an ORI number.
We have an ORI number, but we do not have a law enforcement ORI number.
Why do you need your ORI, and what does it use?
Our ORI allows us to adjust warrants on GCIC. There are things, if you look at that slide that actually has at least a snippet of the agreement, there are responsibilities that a warrant team must do every 30, 60, 90 days, and at the 1-year mark to continue to revalidate warrants, to make sure that they're still active, to update those warrants if the defendant has aliases, tattoos, other information that may be known. Our ORI allows us to go up onto GCIC and make those adjustments. Our ORI allows us to run criminal histories, which comes from GCIC. Our ORI allows us to take down warrants that have been apprehended so that they can be taken off of active GCIC. But we cannot put up a warrant on GCIC like a police department can. So even some of the places that may put up their own warrants actually have law enforcement folks that they're paying to perform that task in-house. So whether that's a marshal's department, a sheriff's department, or a local police department. But the city of Atlanta's volume is extremely high. The GCIC rules are very strict, and the court team can't put those warrants up. Even beyond that, I think it'd be good to maybe do a physical walkthrough of what that looks like, and I'll be happy to do that with you. Because even once the warrant goes up on GCIC, there is still a workload per warrant that gets transferred to the APD team. They have to be prepared to deal with each of those warrants anytime there is a hit. The larger volume, of course, the more people that they actually need.
Okay. Well, that's all I have for now. Looks like that's it. So thank you, Chief Judge.
Absolutely. I have with me the Deputy Chief Judge. He has left out of court early. I wanted to make sure that he had the opportunity. He had some information to add to the presentation, and I wanted to give him the opportunity to do that. This is Judge Christopher Ward. Thank you very much, members of the commission and Mr. Chairman.
All right. Good afternoon. I apologize for being tardy today. In addition to the data that was presented by the Chief Judge and administration, I also wanted to give a practical aspect as to what we actually do at the court. As Chief Judge from 2015 to 2018, I reported to this room on behalf of judges and the staff of municipal court and to the council members of this Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee. I'm honored to be here once again today. By frequency of cases filed, the Municipal Court of Atlanta is the largest court of any type in the Southeast region, and we consistently rank as one of the most efficient in the nation. Pre-pandemic, 230,000 cases were filed yearly at the court. During the pandemic, 76% of our staff, including our judges, continue to report to work to address criminal cases filed within the court. While many courthouses, institutions, and corporations completely shut down or engaged in Zoom meetings, the Municipal Court of Atlanta continued operations while adhering to CDC guidelines in service to the citizens of our great city. Currently, post-pandemic, most courts and nationwide and in Georgia have a backlog of 3 to 4 years. The Municipal Court of Atlanta has no backlog. We are a high-frequency court. My fellow judges and I spend more time in court than any Supreme Court justice, than any Court of Appeal judge, than any Superior Court judge, than any magistrate court judge, any state court judge, more than any judge in the state of Georgia. We spend more time on the bench. The Municipal Court of Atlanta, its solicitors, and public defenders are in court proceedings every day, unlike any court system in the state of Georgia. Every day, aside from our specialty divisions, judges in the Municipal Court of Atlanta have a case docket of 100 cases per day, sometime exceeding 200. I'm leaving a courtroom with 152 cases on the docket today. And let me just emphasize this. Every day, Monday through Friday, 100 to 200 cases on the docket. Every day, our courtrooms were filled with defendants represented by attorneys or public defenders, with prosecutors and judges, wherein conflicts are addressed and resolved in real time. Interviews are conducted with victims of crime, with victim witness advocates, defendants and attorneys, pre-trial or negotiated resolutions to pending cases with prosecutors for presentation to the court. We also have bench trials. Every day, we address and adjudicate cases on behalf of our citizens. No court system in the state of Georgia has full dockets every day. Aside from court appearances, solicitors and defense attorneys must interview victims of crime, contact defendants, and prepare for scheduled trials, let alone for court the next day. In addition to cases being placed on the docket for court every day, a judge must maintain order, respect for proceedings, and professionalism in the courtroom. On a daily basis, we have defendants that appear in court with behavior that's inappropriate. And the judge must address that, disturbances that hinder proceedings. On our administrative days, our support staff and administrative staff attend hearings, attend training. They also go over best practices, and in addition to handle matters that they cannot handle as they're in court each and every day. As a high-frequency court, a high-efficient court, we are the largest court of any type in the Southeast region, one of the most efficient in the nation. And our judges, prosecutors, public defenders, administrative staff give 110% each and every day. This is what I observe every day. As I close, I extend an invitation to everyone of this committee, full council. I ask that you come over and see exactly what we do on a daily basis. Tomorrow I have another 100 cases, starting promptly on time at 9 a.m. I also ask that you fully understand our practices and procedures. And I hope that this presentation will usher further discussions between this committee, full city council, and the court so we can continue to serve our citizens of this great city effectively and efficiently. I thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Judge Ward. Councilmember Lewis.
Thank you as well. My first question is thank you for explaining everything that justices are doing and the way you're coming to work every day. I also heard you say 76% of your folks are coming in right now. Is this?
No. Pardon me. 76% of our staff was working during pandemic.
Gotcha.
We should have 100% of our staff coming in at this time.
Okay.
Of all the cases we have.
Okay, I was going to ask that because of that period right there. Is there anything we could do on city council to make your job a little easier?
Well, I would ask that you come over and see what we do. As the largest court of any type in the Southeast region, one of the most efficient in the nation, there's some misinformation about what we do and our commitment. And there are decisions that are being made that, in this judge's humble opinion, don't reflect what actually is going on. Now, we are a court. The decisions that we make are in accord with the laws of the state of Georgia and the Constitution of this state and the United States of America. You're not going to please everyone. So come and see what we do, respectfully, as opposed to receiving calls from folk that are displeased because we are following the law. Come see what we do. We are working to the bone, effectively and efficiently addressing cases that are presented to us, and all that entails. Come see what we do. I welcome you. I start every morning 9 o'clock. The doors open at 8:30. 215 cases, 178, 156, 152 today. We resolve cases, we adjudicate cases, making us the largest court of any type of the Southeast region, one of the most efficient in the nation.
Thank you.
Councilmember Boone.
Thank you, Judge, so much for coming
to address this body today. And thank you for clarifying so many of the issues that we have heard about from the public, from constituents. And I am very concerned. I am hearing about extended vacation times, shortened hours for judges. I'm hearing that most of December, the courts were pretty much closed. And I am a person that would like to do our due diligence for the public. Because as you know, many of our citizens ride MARTA, they work. So when they come to court at 9 a.m. and then no one is there to receive them, and they are frustrated because they are on MARTA and have to go to work. Now, I definitely want facts.
Okay.
But for many citizens to be frustrated with our court system is very concerning.
I may respond.
So I think that we owe it to the public to do our due diligence because we are public servants. We are public servants. And you can speak for yourself. You can speak for Judge Christopher Ward, a native of Atlanta, Georgia. And your commitment may truly be there. But our commitment has to be to the citizens of this city and to those who say that, you know, the courts are closed until the new year. I just want the facts. That's all I want is the facts. That's all I think the citizens of Atlanta deserve.
And I agree.
So rumors are one thing, facts are the other. So I think what we're seeking is just the pure facts, sir. Just the facts. That's all we want is the facts for the citizens of Atlanta. Is the municipal court functioning as the citizens deserve it to be?
Well,
Are the judges coming to work? Are the judges leaving at 11 a.m., arriving at 9, leaving at 11? Is it true or not? So let's do our due diligence. We were elected by the people. So let's see what's going on at the municipal court. But I appreciate you all being here today, sir. Thank you.
if I may, I'm not aware of any extended vacations. I'm not aware of arriving at 9 and leaving at 11. Prior to becoming a judge in the Municipal Court of Atlanta, I was also a judge in Juvenile Court of Fulton County. I was a prosecutor in the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. I was a public defender in the Fulton County Public Defender's Office. I have a heart of service. I was born and raised in this community. I too am an elected official, and I'm a public servant, and my work beyond the bench is felt in the community. I don't take off work unless my wife tells me to. I work from 9 to 4 sometimes without a break at the behest of my staff.
But you're speaking for yourself.
And my attorney, and that's all I can do at this time, as you recognized. But I can tell you, pre-pandemic, this judge handled 18,000 cases in 1 year, 20,000 cases the following, 19,000 cases in the following. Our data provides, and my practical presentation indicates, that we are the largest court of any type in the Southeast region, one of the most efficient in the nation. And I'm proud of the work that we do. To get the facts, to see what we actually do, come see what we do. I'm in there every day, all day, starting at 9, gladly serving our citizens that I know deserve to be any other place in court than all day. That's the commitment from this public servant. And I'm certain with the numbers and the data that we provided, again, this practical explanation of what we actually do, there's no way you can escape the fact that we are highly efficient and we serve our citizens with 100% each and every day. Come see what we do. I extend a invitation. I've spoken to a couple of you individually. I'd love to see you there, to see what we do each and every day with the high frequency numbers that we deal with in the largest court of any type in the Southeast region, one of the most efficient in the nation. Someone said we treat people with respect over there? Okay. Thank you for coming. Can I take any additional questions? I'd love to do so.
Councilmember Lewis.
And once again, I appreciate Councilmember Boone for talking about how hard you work. But we've heard about some bottlenecks that you say are rumors, and the facts that the council members did ask for. And me as a watchdog for my district, my job is to look at whatever results come back. I think they asked for some time check cards or something, which judges. I don't know anything about it, so
Well, I'll tell you,
I need
that's
to come
beyond
see
my
it.
wheelhouse.
Yep.
When I was chief judge, I understand that we had a safety concern as far as the coming and goings of our judges. We are under attack nationwide.
Sir.
So in that regard, I'll let that be answered by the chief judge and our chief administrator. But as far as time cards, let me just state something.
And I don't even know the question
Okay.
right now. So
Yeah.
I didn't even get to finish it. I said that I know they asked in that council meeting, I know they requested something about time check cards, and I was concerned. I'm like, what are these? And I was told that these cards, because you can even explain that. I appreciate everything y'all brought, especially when our Chief Justice was able to go through point by point. And I felt it and I understood that you are the biggest, most efficient. You remind me of the airport. And I know you're working hard. But they mentioned some time cards in which you can tell, because I get my theme song is doing my job. Every single day I like to get up and go to work. I'm up at 5:30 a.m. going hard. And so to me, the time check cards, which were mentioned from more experienced council members, I'm a freshman council member, the time check cards, they say if judges are coming in at 9 and leaving at 11. Or maybe I'm wrong, I don't know what they are. I was told there are some time check cards in which you can swipe it to get in and you swipe it to get out. And I'll stop there because I may be totally wrong there, but that's what I heard from more experienced council members up here.
Well, I'm not aware of any time check cards. We do have pass codes so we can gain entry into the building and secured areas of the building. But I would like to say that we as judges throughout the state are regulated by the Judicial Qualifications Committee of the state of Georgia, the JQC. So any issues with regard to failing to adequately address cases before you, any issues regarding, deficits in fulfilling a judge's responsibilities and duties as a judge in the state of Georgia are addressed through that commission. I can only speak for myself. Handling upwards of 200 cases per day along with my other colleagues. The data shows nothing that's lacking as far as efficiency of the court and the work that we do on our behalf. So I can't answer your questions other than that. There are some safety concerns that we have as being judges with the high frequency of cases and also living in this city, going to and from other places outside of the bench.
And I didn't even ask a real question. That's why it's hard, because I can tell you would if I were, because I don't know what I'm talking about when I say time check card. I can tell she knows what it is or somebody knows what it is, and you kind of explained it. So I didn't ask you, I wasn't able to ask this, a specific question. That's why you couldn't answer it. But I appreciate you for trying to again.
Okay, all right. And like I say again, the invitation is there. Please come see what we do for a better and fuller understanding of our mission.
I'm looking at my calendar to see if I can walk back with you after this council meeting. I'm looking at my calendar right now to see if I can, after this committee meeting, to see if I can go back with you to see.
I'll be here waiting for you.
Chief
Mr.
Judge
Chairman,
Boyce.
just very, very, very briefly, I just want to address both Councilmember Lewis, Councilmember Boone. Councilmember Boone, I know that you are a very zealous representative of the folks from your district and the citizens of this city, and I greatly appreciate the concern that you have about whether or not folks are doing their job and when they're doing it. One big ask that I have for anybody is always, if you know that you're getting complaints that it's not everybody, but it's somebody, please contact me about the somebody. Just like Judge Ward says that he's there every day, I am all over the place all the time, every day. I have not been on vacation since I have been the chief judge. I'm at work when I'm sick. I am at work on the weekends, but that's me. That may not be everybody. So if you know or you hear that somebody is not doing what they're supposed to do, please let us know so that we can work on doing something about it, because I cannot do to a judge what the Judicial Qualifications Committee can do. But if there are issues, they need to be raised in the right place, and there's no reason to address things generally that we can address specifically. I will say, Councilmember Boone, I do take very seriously when we are operational and when the perception is that we are not. We take every December, we look at two things. We look at the last full council meeting for the year. We also look at when the local school systems are shutting down their operations. We also look at when our sister court systems in the circuit are stopping their normal business for the year, when most places are stopping to run the bulk tile calendars that we run every day, because what we have experienced is individuals around the holiday time are going to ask for resets. They're going to be frustrated that 3 days for Christmas, the week before Christmas, I've got to handle this business under penalty of law. Although it may be significant to us, in many instances it's perceived as the very minor. So we try to alleviate those concerns. During those periods, we're still running 6 days a week, the jail calendar. We are also planning all of the business for the upcoming year, and that's not something the other 9 judges have to worry about, but it is something that myself, the professional who's the court administrator, do have the task to worry about. We have to schedule staff, for instance, who are losing time and they want to take off at the end of the year. We have to balance the judges who are going to be out for Christmas, for Hanukkah, and different things. And we also have to plan what we're going to do for the next 3 to 6 months. For instance, the first 6 weeks in January of 2023, the first 2 weeks into February, we have calendared over 16,000 new cases. We've done that looking at what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and making very informed choices. It is an exercise in logistics. So I can tell you from this judge, the work is going on, even in December. There's not a day in December that the court, Monday through Friday, is not open and operational, forward-facing to the public. The only days that we're closed are those city holidays. And again, we're running the jail calendar even on the holidays as well. So I'm always happy to address concerns in real time, but give me the opportunity to not only address it, but to give you the information about the facts of what's going on. If I told you that over the last 36 months, my head count was hovering at right at 120, that's 120 folks, including the judges and the police officers who are our security. I run a 6-day-a-week operation with employees that I can only pay for a 40-hour work week. We do not pay any overtime because we cannot by law. That is an exercise in logistics on how we do that and maintain continuity of operations. I have to have enough cashiers to move people in and out, enough clerks to file things and give them certified documents. I cannot operate if I don't have those things. That is not a court system. That is not representative to what the citizens of the city demand and expect. We're going to deliver a high level of service, but give me the opportunity to address the concerns. I don't need generality. I need specifics. You'll see the results.
Councilmember Lewis.
I appreciate you for your service. I appreciate you for your service. I appreciate you for coming over and explaining it to us full out the way that you did. And I hope once this is over, if you're still here, I'll walk over with you.
Councilmember Boone.
Thank you, Chief Judge, for you all being here again today. I really don't want you all to take this the wrong way, but we have to do our due diligence. We got to dig in. We got to find out what's going on for the citizens of Atlanta. I hear you, but all you can do is speak for yourself. That's all you can do. You're here to speak for yourself. Something is going on. We have to find out what is going on, because all you can do is speak for yourself. So I appreciate you all coming. I hope that this committee will do what we need to do for the citizens of Atlanta. And let's move.
Councilmember Boone, colleagues, any other questions or comments? And I'll just say I appreciate, Judge Ward, your invitation to the court. I have been to the court multiple times over the years. Been to Judge Portis's court, been to another judge's court. As Councilmember Boone mentioned, this isn't against any certain judge, certainly not against you two. I have high respect for you all. As I've said, I've been to your court, you're always on time, but on the other hand, I've been to other judges' courts who, say their docket starts at 8:30 or 9, and then they wander into the courtroom about 10 or 10:15. So, there are issues. This entire committee, the entire council sponsored a resolution calling for an audit of the municipal court, which was done about 12 years ago now. So we will see what that audit says, but we're certainly interested in working with you all to come up, review that audit, and see where we can go from there. So I thank you for coming over and lending your knowledge and giving us the answers. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad y'all spoke up on that today. Keep that same energy with everything else that you.
Next up is the Office of the City Solicitor Quarterly Update to Raines Carter.
Good afternoon, Chairman Hillis. Good afternoon, President Shipman, and all members of the Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee. I am Raines Carter, City Solicitor, and as always, I'm very pleased to be able to make our presentation to you today. Okay. We will be going over our goals and objectives for 2023. I'll talk specifically about the case management system, our initiatives for Year of the Youth, our APD training efforts. We have a new project that we're going to be doing with Georgia Tech, and I'll turn that portion over to Deputy Solicitor Erica Smith. She is also going to give you a nuisance property update. However, at the end of her nuisance property update, I will be rejoining you to walk you through the eminent domain situation. And then we'll do our community outreach. I need to start off this particular objective about the case management system, expressing my appreciation. You as a council actually approved this for us in December. We're working with the Department of Procurement, with the Department of AIM to get this going. As I mentioned when I brought this before the Finance Executive Committee, and I want to thank Chairman Juan for really pushing this forward for us, this is a game changer. This is about accountability. This system will give you the metrics that you need to make the determinations of what we're doing and how we're doing it in the city solicitor's office. It's actually going to give you the numbers in real time. So as I go over this, first of all, as you know, as a sworn prosecutor for the city of Atlanta and for the state of Georgia, we initiate all cases in the court system. We screen and prepare those cases. We present the cases to the judges for some form of a disposition. Sometimes that disposition could be not guilty. Sometimes that disposition is guilty. Sometimes that disposition could be based upon a no-law plea. But we are authorized by Title 15 of the Georgia Code to handle all cases involving state law, municipal ordinances, and we can dismiss, amend, divert, and prosecute all of these citations. We were recently upheld, as of today, for a second time by the Fulton County Superior Court of having that authority to handle all those cases, even when those cases have state law violations, because I am a state sworn prosecutor that works here with the city of Atlanta. We want to be able to exchange information. This information needs to be shared with the administration and with city council. We won't have to wait until budget time for Councilman Shook to ask me about noise ordinance cases. That's been an ongoing thing for years. We want to put the proper interfaces in place for you all to be able to see and get that information in real time so that you can share it with the citizens of Atlanta. We're also going to be involved in generating the documents that are needed, citations, warrants, communications, and responses. We most recently prepared some warrants for our jail calendar, but guess what? We're still doing it manually. We've got to be more efficient in doing that. So this system is really going to help us to do the things that we need to be able to do. And we're working with AIM to make sure that we carry out all standards that are required for the automation of court information. Now, the part that we can't share with you or with anybody is the preparation side, because again, we have the same rules in place for us, just like the Solicitor Generals and the district attorneys, that those are matters that are within litigation. Sometimes that even happens on our cold cases. We can't necessarily publicly give a face to things while they're still in litigation. But once those things are at a point for public sharing, this system is going to give you what you need so you're not having to worry and wait on information. We want to put the interfaces in place, so hopefully AIM will be reaching out to you. The Department of Procurement is also working with us on this process. Year of the Youth, absolutely, positively, should have been happening all along. I applaud our mayor and his administration, and I applaud you as council members for focusing on our youth. We have already started engaging with the city's representatives that are going to be a part of the new Department of Labor that you have approved. We've already reached out to Workforce Development because we are onboarding data entry technicians. And these are the people that are going to help us with the case management system. What we want to do is to make sure that we train young people. And what a way for them to see what happens in the criminal justice system, but to actually work and be a part of it. In addition to that, we want to be a resource for the Youth Leadership Institute that the mayor's office is putting together. We want to reach down to younger people. Now, this part of the project will be for school students. So these are people that are not working yet. We want them to see and interact with the criminal justice system other than just on the negative side, coming to court to see a parent locked up. We want them to know and to understand about criminal justice careers. How many 10, 11, 12-year-olds know what a prosecutor is? Now, I'd like to say that I came up with the idea, but I didn't. I'm actually borrowing it from my colleague, District Attorney Fonnie Willis. And she has come up with a junior district attorney program. So I want you all to look forward to meeting junior solicitors. We're going to bring some of them over here, but also when you come over to court, and I want them to start working with the system from a positive aspect so that they don't see criminal justice officials always in the negative. Oh, well, that's the person that put my dad in jail, or that's the person that was after my cousin. We want to see them look at it from another perspective. And so we're very proud to get this started. At this point, I'm going to pause, and I'm going to basically ask that Deputy Solicitor Erica Smith come forward to talk to you about a new collaborative regarding Georgia Tech, but I will be back with you to talk about a couple of other things. And always, thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Hillis, members of Public Safety, and President Shipman. My name is Erica D. Smith, and I'm Deputy Solicitor in the Office of the City Solicitor. And I want to talk to you about the collaborative partnership that we have with the Georgia Tech Police Department. And this is one of the aspects that prosecutors do. We do partner with our law enforcement agencies. And in this particular partnership, it's an aim to put cases in our diversion program. With the increased enrollment at the Institute, as well as the growing footprint at the campus, there's an increase of motor vehicles and micro mobility vehicles. And those micro mobility vehicles are your bicycles, your electric bicycles, your scooters, as well as your electric skateboards. So with those type of vehicles transgressing in and out of the Institute, we have formed a collaborative to put those cases, the Title 40 cases, as well as the city ordinances for violations that can be made on those micro transportation vehicles, that those particular violations will be put in our diversion program. So since October, the rollout of this program. The Georgia Tech Police Department, Chief Connolly and his staff, they have developed a task force, and that task force is comprised of Georgia Tech police officers and their public safety officers and our department, the City Solicitor's Office. And what we have done, along with Georgia Tech, they have posted on their social media educational information, as well as conducted stops, educated their students, as well as given out warnings. Now, what they have done is issued over 300 warnings to the students, but as of March 1st, they're going to roll out full enforcement and actually ticket those individuals who have outstanding violations on campus. And again, those violations, if they're eligible for our diversion program, they will not go through the traditional prosecution of going to court. They will be eligible for additional education through our office, as well as the violations being put through in the diversion program will ultimately mean that the case is dismissed. I'm going to give you an update on our problem properties. These properties that I'm going to report on were reported back with code enforcement at a previous public safety committee meeting. But before I get into that, I want to talk to you about some of our accomplishments in calendar year 2022. In 2022, we did a lot of things that we have never done before. Our office had never gone to Superior Court to get actual injunctions against various problem properties or nuisance properties. We did that with 320 Lucky Street, where we were successful in a favorable outcome with that particular entity, which was Encore Hookah Bar, being closed. They actually moved. We also brought several nuisance actions that have been gone through Superior Court or still in Superior Court, and that would be, we won at the municipal court level for Forest Cove, is currently being appealed in the Fulton County Superior Court with an upcoming date of March 20th, for that case to be heard again in Superior Court. We also we had never brought a case that the city actually appealed, but we do have a active appeal on 3657 Martin Luther King that's in the Superior Court, and on 400 Edgewood. Not only did we have a favorable result in municipal court, that case was appealed, we got a favorable result in Superior Court, and now we are fighting that case in the Georgia Court of Appeals. So our office is really making a path with nuisance properties and problem properties. For our problem property updates, I will be updating you on 532 Cleveland Avenue, which is Pavilion Place Apartments, Harvest Oaks Apartments, which is at 2980 Delmar Lane, Woodland Heights, which is at 2500 Center Street, Royal Oaks, 3540 North Camp Creek, and Magnolia Park, which is at 60 Pascal Boulevard. 532 Cleveland Avenue. And before I go into the update, I just want to let you know that many of these cases are either in active investigation or in active litigation. So therefore, I will be happy to have offline conversations for those properties that may lie in your district or any other questions that you may have that gets into the legality of these particular cases. But I do want to point out a couple things that we did bring a complaint against Pavilion Place. However, we're working on a pending consent agreement with the ownership of that particular property, and that consent agreement should be filed in the court soon. Now, I count this as a success. Harvest Oaks apartment, we did do an inspection at that property. We came out and did a collaborative detail with our office, the Office of the City Solicitor, Code Enforcement, Public Works, and Zoning. Now, this property, before we were able to file a complaint on it, was sold. The whole purpose of bringing these cases, doing our details, doing collaborative details at these property addresses, as well as bringing our complaints, are to bring the properties in compliance. At the end of the day, compliance can be either renovating, remediating, or selling the property or putting it into somebody's that is responsible hands. On December 14th, we actually did a collaborative detail in November. This property sold on December 14th, so it changed hands, but it is in the hands of a responsible owner now. To date, the present ownership has pulled permits. They have started renovation at the property. They have done full-scale renovations of a building that was burned out. They have also hired off-duty APD patrol to patrol that area, and ownership has reached out to the APD zone commander, that would be Zone 1, as well as his city council person for that particular district, to work with the city for safety measures as well as to work with the community. So we count this one as a success for Harvest Oaks. Royal Oaks Apartments, which is at 3540 Camp Creek Parkway, I'm sorry. The solicitor's office met with the manager, attorney for the property, as well as code enforcement and a partner in that particular property. And they too are entering to a consent agreement with the city to remediate the violations that we found at that property address when we did a collaborative detail back in November. And I just spoke with one of the attorneys that is drafting the agreement, and the attorneys for Royal Oaks do have it, and that should be filed soon as well. Magnolia Parks Apartments. We have done a collaborative detail at that particular apartment complex, but it is still under investigation, and we have a reinspection that is forthcoming. We have partners that we partner with, AHA as well as DCA, Department of Community Affairs, who have a stakehold in these particular properties, and we're waiting on some interior inspections that are done by our stakeholders and partners. Tools for fighting blight. I want to talk to you about all the tools that we presently have in our toolbox, as well as some of the tools that we may bring into that could be useful in fighting blight. The number one thing that we do that most people come to court on are citations, where we issue citations for overgrowth, junk, trash, and debris, open and vacant, things of that nature. And when I say citations, it's not just residential and commercial code violations, it's violations for public works, fire code violations. We also deal with violations from buildings, zoning, watershed, business license. So we see on a daily basis, we see most of our violations coming in on citations. The solicitor's office can also bring cases through accusation, where we formally accuse cases and bring those to court. We also have the civil process, where we don't issue citations to LLCs or businesses for commercial and residential code violations. That's a civil process that we bring those particular entities into court. We also use our judicial in rem process, which is an action against the property itself, where we're asking for remediation of the property. And you all hear nuisance abatement. And not only do we bring in properties for nuisance abatement, but we also bring in our nightlife properties, those entities, as you saw that we brought the Encore property, we brought that into court for injunctive relief. So we use citations, accusations, the civil process, judicial in rem, nuisance abatement, injunctive relief, and also, even though we don't bring these cases, there is the administrative and board hearings that cases are brought before that particular board on blighted properties for cleaning clothes. That means that those properties are boarded, or for total demolition if they're over 51% deteriorated. At this time, I'm going to turn the presentation back over to the city solicitor, Mr. Carter, to talk about eminent domain and how we can bring properties through that, how that can be used as a tool to fight blight.
As we begin this discussion, I just want to take a moment to let you all know that I hear you. Councilmember Norwood and many others have talked to me about this issue. So we have reached out. We have talked to our colleagues in 3 different jurisdictions. We've talked to the attorneys that handle this in the city of Savannah, in the city of Macon, and in the consolidated government of Augusta, Richmond County. Savannah has used this process successfully. Savannah has used this process regarding single-family residences. So they have not used it yet with regard to a commercial property. And what the colleague explained to us is that they're first going after what's called the low-hanging fruit, which are the single-family residences. He said that one thing that they ran into is, and you'll run into this with single-family residences, sometimes air property, where it's not clearly delineated who owns the property. So it can become time-consuming and cumbersome in tracking down heirs, but he said the key to it, of course, is to stick with it. And they were able to do that, and they were able to bring something successfully through that process. Our colleagues in Macon have not used the actual process yet, but they have been using their nuisance abatement ordinance. And one thing that Macon is doing that we aren't doing here in the city of Atlanta yet is that when they run into the problems related to interior violations, they are actually going into the courts getting what's called an administrative warrant, like an administrative search warrant, based upon violations in districts. Well, obviously, we're going to start looking into that. We need as many tools in our toolbox as possible. So we were very grateful to Macon for bringing to our attention that that is a process that we might use. And of course, we're going to be continuing our dialogue with them when they actually handle the eminent domain statute and what their rate of success is. Now, Augusta, Richmond County, which is, of course, is a consolidated government, they have something that I think we might want to take a look at. They're going to start some eminent domain proceedings, but they were able to do a comprehensive ordinance related to the way that they decided to handle it. So they started their actions under the ordinance. I'm actually going to leave a physical copy here with you today, but I'm also going to forward it to each of you and also to President Shipman's office electronically, so you all can take a look at the ordinance that Macon is using, Augusta is using, and I think that will help us in our process. So let's talk about the blighted property process that the state of Georgia has put in place. Whenever you start a discussion related to eminent domain, there are 3 things that you definitely have to remember, and those are our constitutional limitations. What are the constitutional limitations? Well, per the U.S. Supreme Court and the Georgia Supreme Court, number 1 is they have to be considered for public use. Number 2, the Constitution requires that we do what? Just compensation. So if we are exercising eminent domain. Some people use the word condemnation interchangeably, so I'm talking about the same thing. We have to look at just compensation for the taking of that property. And we have to definitely take a look at the fact that we have to comport with all the requirements of due process. And that means notice and hearing. And that's notice to everybody. So that's what they ran into in Savannah. If there are some errors out there, we have to get notice to those. But it can be done successfully. Blighted property, as defined by state law, can come about in terms of us bringing cases when 2 or more of the following conditions are found under subheading A. We'll be looking specifically at this: uninhabitable, unsafe, or abandoned structures. Abandoned structures, of course, are easier to go after. There's no one living there, have to worry about relocation, and we have those types of structures here in the city of Atlanta. If we skip down to sub-Roman numeral 5, also we have a lot of issues with what? Repeated illegal activity on individual properties when an owner knows or should have known things were going on, drug transactions, violent incidences. So, and then the next one I think is going to help us tremendously, and that is the maintenance of these properties are what? They're below our codes with the state, county, and our own municipal codes, and it says that for at least 1 year. So that gives us an opportunity to get with code enforcement, with the police department, and also get with our other city agencies that enforce various codes related to building codes and other things, so that we can do what? Time out how these violations come. We put these two things together, and that allows us to do this. And we can do this without having to invoke subsection B, which talks about ill health, transmission of disease, infant mortality. Those things relate to a lot of commercial establishments, factories, other things in the state of Georgia that cause these issues. So we see a path forward by taking this approach. As we do a particular walkthrough, keeping in mind the 3 prerequisites that are required by the Constitution, we know that we have to do what? Condemn the property for public use. We would file a petition in our Superior Court with the jurisdiction, and it's an in rem action against the property. And we're seeking a determination of the blighted property. And the petition has to set forth all of the particulars that we have to put in place to make sure that this is done properly. Number 7, a statement setting forth the need of the court to review the evidence and determine whether such property meets the definition of blight. That's where we have to do our work. We have to come together, and that's where information, even information that comes to council members, that's where we can gather the information from you all for the petition, so everybody can play a role in this. And the thing to remember is that once this comes into place, I'm going to take a minute and just read H for you, and I hope I'm not boring you, but H is very important. Any property deemed blighted shall be described in the order adjudging such determination and containing a statement of the current approved land use of the property, or in the case of vacant property, the last lawful use for which the property was occupied. And such property's future use shall be restricted to the same land use as stated in the order for a period of 5 years. So keep that in mind from the date of this order. Now, that actually came from a U.S. Supreme Court decision many years ago when another state basically took some land and turned it over to developers for a shopping center. They're saying to us, our interpretation of being able to take property is to first look at putting that property to use in the same form that it was before for a period of 5 years. So I wanted you all to definitely understand that as we look at this process and we look at undertaking it, that there are some things in place, but I am happy to continue to reach out to our other partners with regard to what they're doing in cities, and we will be exploring our connections with other jurisdictions in Georgia. And if you all know through you all's colleagues in other cities of some things that are doing, I would really appreciate if you all would forward that information to us so that we can reach out to their legal arms and have those things put in place also. I'll go ahead and finish up our presentation so that we can take questions. Let me go back to one of the slides that I skipped. There it is. Yeah, I'm sorry, I skipped this when we were talking about our goals and objectives. We are determined with all of the challenges that our law enforcement partners are undergoing these days to do all that we can to provide training for Atlanta Police Department, Atlanta Fire Rescue, to make sure that we're following all of our state, federal, and city laws. So Deputy Solicitor Andrew Taylor heads up that section for us. And he and Senior Prosecutor Arn Burns have been interacting with the new recruits that we're bringing on to make sure that we properly train them with regard to law enforcement techniques. Now I'll go back. And just to wrap up our presentation, we're continuing to do our community outreach. We see many of you at our events. We certainly appreciate your support and your participation. We had a special event last quarter of last year with regard to domestic violence. Senior Assistant Arn Burns was there, and we were very happy to be able to participate in something that's still a little too silent, and that is people undergoing domestic violence. And of course, we're continuing to work with you with our food drives, and we appreciate all the support that you give us. That ends our presentation, and so myself and Deputy Solicitor Smith are ready for questions.
Thank you, Solicitor Carter. First up, we'll have Councilmember Boone.
Yes, I would just like to thank you all so much for your diligence on working on these problem properties in our community. I did have an opportunity to speak with our District Attorney, Bonnie Willis, who wants to circle back around so that we can stay in sync on what all jurisdictions are doing. But it is very, very painful to see our citizens in some of these apartment complexes living in rodents and all types of filth, and then the owners live out of town. But thank you for what you all have done, and I hope that at some point we could send these owners certified letters letting them know that, putting them on notice that they must clean up their properties so that our citizens can live in a safe, decent, and sanitary housing. Thank you.
Yes, we have a letter process that we've already started with the Problem Properties Initiative, and we will continue to do so.
Councilmember Lewis.
And I want to echo Councilmember Bone and also send out a special thank you to Ms. Deputy Solicitor Erica Smith for continuing to be so open and transparent with Pavilion Place and with other apartments in my area. Pavilion Place, to see the upgrades, to see the forced upgrades that they've done so far, and to see us just still making sure that they see us and feel us in that community. I appreciate you for that. Thank you.
Councilmember Norwood.
Yes, I saw where you listed 5 problem properties, and you described 4 of them, but I did not see where 2500 Center Street was described. Can you tell us what's going on with that one?
Yes, 2500 Center Street actually is in Zone 1 in District 3.
I know where it is.
Okay, and that particular property is still under investigation. We actually, I'm sorry, it's in District 9, I misspoke.
Right.
And we actually were out there today on a reinspection. So that property is still under investigation. I'm sorry that I missed that page, but we're still investigating that particular property. We were out there today with our partners, the Department of Community Affairs, who has a stakehold in that particular property to do interior inspections.
Good. Thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues? Councilmember Vice Chair Amos.
Yes, I know it was on the list, but when do we expect that further inspection in Magnolia Park?
One of the main purposes of our problem property initiative is to work with the stakeholders in these properties as well. So we are waiting for one of our stakeholders to do their interior inspection. When we do these inspections, from the most part for the city, and I hate to use this, but we're kind of like vampires. We cannot enter your property unless you ask us to, unless you have a complaint with code and say, come in and look at the interior of my property. But many of our stakeholders, by law or by contract, they have the ability to go inside of these properties. So when it's under investigation, most of the time we're waiting on our partners to do their interior inspection, which by law they can enter into these properties.
By law, how long are we waiting on our partners to go in to inspect so we can go in to inspect?
With that, and you're speaking on Magnolia.
Yes.
I can speak offline with that, on that particular property, council member. Okay.
All right, thank you. And also 2 commercial properties in which we can forego the formalities and move directly to eminent domain loans. I care, but 999 DeSoto Street, which is the old Ollie Street Y in Washington Park. The developer is playing the game of getting the permit, sitting on it, already went through NREM, but the community is ready and tired. I can use it as a parking lot for the park, so I got a perfect public use for it. And then 1410 Joseph E. Boone, the burnt out units right there on Chapel and Joe Boone, they need to be gone as well. So let me know, I can help. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And just specific to Councilmember Amos's point and the issues that I know we talked about when we were on site at Woodlawn Heights, talked about having to have those inspections by our partners, but then, Solicitor Carter mentioned those administrative warrants. Where are we at in exploring that option?
Well, again, we have just spoke with Macon last week, so we are going to implement that particular tool within our office immediately so that we can gain entry into some of these complexes. But today, we were actually out with our partners, so we didn't have to go and get an administrative warrant because they were giving us entry.
Gotcha. President Shipman.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. A few questions on the problem properties. One, Councilmember Boone brought up the good point around the district attorney. Could you just, for the public and for our reminder, explain what the role is for the district attorney and the kinds of things that they would be bringing forth versus what it is that the solicitor's office does?
Thank you, President Shipman. Last year, we were able to start a collaboration, which is ongoing, with the Fulton County District Attorney's Office. It turned out that we had a list of problem properties, but so did the District Attorney's Office. And the District Attorney's Office is able to go in under certain aspects that we cannot. Number one, dealing with drugs, drug trafficking, drug sales. Some of the same issues are going on at these properties. Number two, and we're hearing more and more about this, is the sex trade, human trafficking that's taking place with regard to what happens at these properties. You probably have heard from constituents, there are some horrendous stories where these properties are actually being cordoned off by people, which leads to number three, and that is gang activity. So we found a common area that we can work together with us dealing with the underlying conditions that these people are living in with the squalor. And it all makes for just a very dangerous and poor quality of life. I also want to let you know that we work with our other prosecution partners, DeKalb County District Attorney's Office, Ms. Boston. We have one property that we're working on. We're also proud to work with Solicitor General Keith Gamage and Solicitor of Fulton County and Solicitor General of DeKalb County, Donna Coleman Stribling, because we have overlapping responsibilities with those offices as prosecutors. We have been asked by the District Attorney's Office, quite frankly, to start looking at some other aspects of commercial properties because, President Shipman, they're also having some concerns about commercial establishments around massage parlors and other types of things. As you know, we had a horrendous situation in Metro Atlanta some time ago relating to that. And so I believe our next meeting is actually going to add those types of properties to our collaboration. Is that correct, Erica? Yes. Yes, we're meeting with Deputy District Attorney John Turner, and we're going to be adding those properties. So we have a lot of work ahead. We really need your support, but we really appreciate what the administration is doing, what you all are doing. And again, if you all are aware of some of the other municipalities, some of your colleagues that serve in elected positions that have some ideas, I definitely want to leave this with you from Augusta, Richmond County, because when I looked it over, they even put some information in here regarding some tax issues that may help us provide some type of incentives, but at the same time, some form of leverage to get these property owners, these absentee property owners, attention. Because if they're, out in California at a spa somewhere, they really don't care. But if something impacts the bottom line of their ownership and that profit that they're bringing in, maybe it'll get their attention. So that was specifically what we were working on with them. But I'd love to sit down and talk to you about some of the other ideas that we're getting from our fellow prosecutors to tackle this, because this is going on nationwide. We're about to become a whole country of renters, and we need to be in a position where we can continue to foster and encourage home ownership and responsible home ownership. So we got a lot of work ahead of us.
Thank you. Could you talk a little bit about the role of the consent decree and why using that as opposed to a prosecution is a strategy in certain, why would you use that? Why would you go down that path with the property owner?
Mm-hmm. I'll start it off, and then I'll have Deputy Solicitor to do. In many instances, the whole notion of the consent agreement is actually brought up by the people that are charged with the offense. And if you look at it in the sense of what happens in the general criminal arena, it's like a plea agreement. What they are doing is saying, hey, I acknowledge these violations. So it makes for a smoother and, quite frankly, a more efficient process when you're not going to trial fighting each and every charge. Because as you know, an apartment complex can have hundreds of violations. If they would submit to it, then it kind of puts us ahead of the 8 ball and we start going to remediation. Because if you think about our goal in bringing them to trial anyway is to find them guilty, to hold them responsible, and to do what? Set them on a timetable to not only provide punishment for what has taken place, but also how do you change the condition of the property? Because it's all well and good for me to go to court, get a big fine, and you go there and the property is still in the same condition tomorrow. So when they come in and say to us, hey, you got me, can we consent to some things, then we can present to the judge something that can be expedited and saying, guess what? ABC company is going to do this. They're going to handle these violations within 20 days. They're going to handle these violations within 10 days. And then that way, it takes the force and the order of the court to monitor what they're doing to make sure that they comply. Because guess what? If they don't comply, if they don't pay attention to us, as Councilman Hillis has pointed out to us several times, each day is a particular violation. So you all can keep me real busy because we can file for a violation each day. Erica, do you want to add anything to that?
I just want to quickly add that also a consent agreement can put things in memorialize things that we don't cite for. Many of these properties have crime, okay? We can't cite you for not having a camera, but we can sit down and memorialize and get you to agree to have surveillance cameras and integrate into our video integration center. So that's just one thing that came to mind that we can't cite you for, but if we can mutually sit down, you can agree to it, and we can make this a consent agreement that we can file with the court. And then once it's filed, you have to obey that particular order.
Thank you. At the last Public Safety Committee meeting, Code Enforcement talked about bringing on 3 new staff members and increasing the number of inspections that they're doing on a weekly basis. Do you feel like that you're well equipped and staffed to basically catch the additional inspections that will be coming? I want to make sure there's not a bottleneck between inspections and the ability to go ahead and go to the next steps around filings.
Yeah. Our staff is growing also. We have just been informed, I believe it was last week, that we are receiving additional funding that's already been allocated by you all from the administration to help us. One of the things that we have been looking for is a certified paralegal that deals with property issues in the private sector that will help us as we get into these areas to expedite the paperwork that will be in place. So we have already been, and I don't want to announce it publicly, but we've already been allocated a particular sum. There's looking, I won't announce it publicly now because I always ask for more. So you may hear from me, but there's already been an allocation put in place. But that's what we need from you all. Thank you so much.
And then just finally, offline, if we could have a conversation about Pavilion Place. I've received some information over the weekend that I'd like to share with all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Also, we go back to Councilmember Norwood, been joined by Councilmember Bond. Councilmember Norwood.
Yes, I'm looking at the definition of public use in the state code, and there are about 9 different types of descriptions. And so I think where it's gotten confused is public use, meaning we're going to build a new fire station on that land.
Right.
And so we take it and we're going to put a fire station there. And so we have the right to say, we need this land for a fire station. But so that's been the traditional understanding of the public for public use. But this is talking about the acquisition of property where the title is clouded due to the inability to identify or locate all owners of the property, or the acquisition of property where unanimous consent is received from each person with a legal claim that has been identified. And then the next one is the remedy of blight. Mm-hmm. So there, the state law is now saying that a public use is the remedy of blight.
Absolutely.
And what you just said, which I understand, is it has to be in the same use for the same purpose for 5 years. So you're not talking about taking a property that is an abandoned apartment complex and putting a shopping center on it.
No.
But what I would like for you to please get with the city's law department, and y'all come up with what are the ways that we can take these properties that we can publicize so that the owners of these types of properties know that we are on solid ground, that we can come in and take them. I think the only way we're going to clean some of this up, because y'all are working very, very hard on very few properties. And I understand that. I'm not saying you should have more that you're working with. But if we're going to ratchet this up, we've got to ratchet it up publicly with a simple soundbite that says, these are the ways we can take your property and you better watch out because we're coming to do it. We need that kind of a public relations, public awareness so that we can talk about the dozens that every one of these council members has in their districts, not 5, not Center Street, not Delmar Lane. I know every one of the places that are on the locations that you've identified, and they're all important. But every single one of those has got properties within a half mile, a mile, that also warrant attention and remedy. So if you will get with the law department and let's have what type of communication this committee ought to do in conjunction with y'all and the DA to say, this is it, game's over.
Absolutely. We actually saw that. And when the state of Georgia did the amendment on the eminent domain, you're absolutely correct. That public use that was interpreted by the U.S. Supreme Court is more and more generic now. We have more and more avenues and opportunities, so we'll be happy to get with the city law department, Fulton County District Attorney. We got some properties over in DeKalb, so consider that done. We'll get with them. Thank you.
Any other questions, colleagues? All right. I'll just say, as others have said, and you've mentioned, we've got some more money this fiscal year. However, budget season will be here before we know it. So maybe the administration is listening too, but don't bring us a budget that doesn't show a increase in staff and money for you to do the work you're doing now, plus, as you've heard, a lot more work that needs to be done. So thank you for your service and your presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman Hillis, President Shipman. Thank you, all members of the committee. Always a pleasure.
Councilmember Boone?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I see some wonderful, wonderful public servants that we don't get to see often. I wanted to recognize our president, Nate Bailey, and Captain Terrence Simon. Would you all please stand? Atlanta Fire Rescue Department, you all are great. Everybody stand up. Thank you all so much. We don't get to see you all as much, but I just want to thank you all on behalf of the citizens of Atlanta for everything you all do, and thank you for paying us a visit today. And also our captain, our Major Johnson from Corrections, thank you for all you do. Thank you for being here. And of course, APD, we love them. Thank y'all. Thank you, keeping us safe, Mr. Peter Amos.
Thank you, Councilmember Boone. And mentioning APD, as I mentioned at the start of the meeting, their presentation will be quarterly, has been rescheduled for February 27th at our next Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee. So with that, we'll move on to our agenda. We've already handled item 1, which is a communication. Councilmember Bond? Okay. Deputy Chief Quiller, or excuse me, not Quiller. He's on the agenda. I'm seeing his name. I'm looking at you, Deputy Chief. And I've done that before. Councilmember Bond has a question for APD. Deputy Chief Peak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate members of the committee indulging me, because I was not here when they did their presentation. But I just wanted to ask a question about, I know that there are some officers that are being diverted or reassigned to patrol the site of the Public Safety Training Center. Can you expound on that and tell us what is entailed in that operation? Because I've had a couple of citizens wonder, well, they just asked me straight up and said, well, they're going to pull from the zones. How are they going to do it?
Good afternoon, Deputy Chief Timothy Peak, Atlanta Police Department. So what we are doing with that particular site, and there's a component of every division with minimal, extreme minimal impact to field operations for the 911 Patrol Center. We have placed some officers out there because of the violence that's been at the particular location to ensure that the officers aren't hurt, that the construction people who are there doing the service on behalf of Atlanta Police Foundation and the build-out would be safe, because there have been threats, there have been a lot of things going on. But it's a very small footprint of people that are there with a good plan in place to ensure that everyone's safe.
And just to follow up, we still have not yet annexed that property, right, into the city. I know that there might be an effort to do so. So in providing the security, do we still have to call DeKalb County to come when there's an incident? Or does that arrest power extend to that city-owned land, even though it's not within the city limit?
So a lot of moving pieces, and I would like to have an offline conversation about the specifics to it. What I will say is that we have officers that are there who are in communication and working alongside other state entities, as well as DeKalb County entities, and we also have some deputized people that are on site within APD. But to get into the specifics, yes, I'd like to do that offline.
Okay. Well, we can do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councilmember Lewis, did you have a question for Deputy Chief Peak?
Yes, particularly because Councilman Bond opened up this door. And I didn't know that. Why do we have our officers out there? And is this something that we typically would do for a nonprofit or for a private organization?
So quite frankly, I think this is a place that we've never been with the level of violence that we've had at that location and what's happening, and it's a city-owned property. So I think it's one that we probably need to have a briefing offline on it, but we are in communication with every step with our Department of Law to ensure that we as a city of Atlanta is in the best place that we can be moving forward to keep everybody with the vested interest safe.
I would just, me personally, because I've been told we have to pay for security for Little League basketball games. We have to pay for police or for Fulton County Sheriffs for anything we do. I would hope that a organization with as much money and backing as the organization that's building that company, that we are treating them how we treat our kids. And when we need police to help us with traffic so we can stop the young man from getting hit on Cleveland Avenue who was hit. Because we couldn't afford. I couldn't afford to pay somebody to come out there and do that type of stuff. And so I would hope that we're treating everything the same.
All right, we'll move on to our legislative agenda.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Chief Peak. Communications, we've already handled item number 1. Item number 2, the appointee could not be present, so I'll make a motion to hold that for 2 weeks' time certain. Is there a second? Second by Vice Chair Amos.
I'll sound it. A communication from Ann Phillips, President, Atlanta Planning Advisory Board, submitting the appointment of Ms. Adrienne Proler to serve on the Atlanta Citizen Review Board in the Neighborhood Planning Unit, Group S through Z category. This appointment is for a term of 3 years.
Please prepare the vote. I was the motioner. Councilmember Amos was the seconder.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. That item will be held for 2 weeks' time certain. Moving on to our consent agenda, we have resolutions for claims with favorable and unfavorable recommendations. I'll make a motion to accept all favorable claims, items 1 through 3. Is there a second? Second by Vice Chair Amos. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Those 3 items are favorable. I'll now make a motion to adverse all unfavorable claims, items 4 through 22. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Boone. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Items 4 through 22 are adversed. Moving on to our regular agenda ordinances for second read, 23-0-1075.
An ordinance by Councilmember Amir Faroki to amend Chapter 10, Article 2, Section 10-92B of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances so as to provide an exemption from the distance requirements identified in Section 10-88.1 of the City of Atlanta Code of Ordinances for one wine specialty shop located at 405 Nora Agner Avenue and for the purposes.
Make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Boone. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable. Item number 2, 23-0-1080.
There is a substitute and the caption does change.
I'll make a motion to bring forth the substitute. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Norwood.
The vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Substitute is before us.
An ordinance to authorize the mayor or his designee to authorize the chief financial officer to execute a master lease agreement with J.P. Morgan Chase Bank for the acquisition of 100 Dodge Chargers and 100 Dodge Durangos with police packages for APD fleet and 3 Chevy Tahoes and 1 GMC Yukon Extra Large with police packages for mayoral detail on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department with Atkins Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram and Hardy Family Fleet in an amount not to exceed $12,109,782.90 and for other purposes.
Before us, I'm first going to make a motion to amend to add my name as a co-sponsor. Does anyone else like to? This is a great paper for a fleet acquisition for APD. Councilmember Bond, Councilmember Norwood, Councilmember Lewis. Councilmember Boone. So I'll make a motion to make that amendment to add co-sponsors. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Chair Amos. Please prepare the vote on that amendment.
The vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Item is amended to add those co-sponsors. I do have a few questions. I know we've been joined by Chief Administrative Officer Amon. I've done some previous papers on this, the take-home car papers and 60 more papers plus some other odds and ends. And one of the challenges has been, the initial challenge is just finding cars coming out of the pandemic. The challenge we currently face that I'm made aware of is just getting all of these new cars outfitted. It's great that we've got them in our possession, but just for example, I think the event I was at Zone 1, we were only slowly progressing through that 40 cars, not to mention the 60, and maybe those are being equipped separately since they're not in the take-home program. And I know vendors are limited who do this in the state of Georgia. So what is the current status of getting them outfitted, and have we looked at additional resources, even perhaps outside the state, to get these vehicles outfitted in a more timely manner?
Yes, thank you. Peter Amon, Chief Administrative Officer, Atlanta Police Department. This has been one of our great frustrations in APD is first, as you said, getting the cars, and then actually the next thing is getting the equipment that goes on the cars because of the global supply chain challenges. And the cars these days, as you saw out at the event, are quite complicated. It's way more than the lights, right? We now have modems in them, we have radios in them, and if you actually look in the equipment area in the back, this is way more sophisticated than what I used to do, which is to put a CB radio in a car or something, which was, I could do that. But this has a significant number of electronics that then, of course, have to be programmed. So it's not just the installation, but there's literally like a 3-foot by 3-foot platform of electronics that has to be installed, programmed, and then guaranteed and warranted over a certain period of time. I just provide that context because as we've gone through this process, it turns out that you can't get just anybody to do this. Additionally, we have a contract with Aikens, which includes, as part of the base city contract, West Chatham as the outfitter, so we have some certain procurement contractual constraints. Having said all that, yes, we are looking for additional people to outfit, and we are looking nationwide. Obviously, the further you go, you have to transport the cars there and then transport them back, so that's a cost we would prefer to avoid. We're also cognizant of the fact that while this purchase will be extremely helpful this year as we look forward and roll out the take-home program, given that our starting point is 75% of the fleet is out of life cycle, we'll have more purchases. And so we certainly are looking to try and, quite frankly, attract somebody to Atlanta to open a shop. We've had some people who are interested. Obviously, there's a whole procurement process, so we can't, we can't promise people City of Atlanta work for sure. But we can certainly observe, as I'm doing here now, that we need more capacity in the Atlanta metro area to do outfitting and upfitting of cars. I will also say that this has been a topic of some conversation, both in Georgia and nationally. So when you go to major chiefs, when you go to the Georgia chiefs meetings, they all talk about the fact that upfitting is a problem. We did find one vendor recently who was interested in having a discussion about upfitting and upfitting, a future upfitting possibility of work, and they said they could do it, and everything sounded great. You sort of read the email at the bottom and said, however, it's an 8-month lead time. So that's what we're running into. So sorry for the long answer, but we are looking far and wide. It's just extremely frustrating that nobody has the capacity. And I mean, the chief and I were on the phone with several people, external vendors, encouraging them to hurry up and get done with our cars. We were pretty forceful about that message, and they were accommodating and listened and said, well, I've got calls with 4 other chiefs this afternoon, so we are Atlanta, but we're not the only people out there trying.
Thank you for that. And speaking of those take-home cars, I know initial allocation was 40. Are any of these or any of those 60 of the last paper, are we adding more cars to that program? If so, how many, when?
Yes, absolutely. So of the 60 cars, and then there were some that were donated as well. So in total, we have 70 of the Chargers from the previous purchase that we now have in-house, so to speak. A number of them are being put in the take-home program. I will say, though, our zones are short of cars, so the next batch are going to the zones. So the next 20 to 30 will go to the zones out of that Chargers, and then we'll start sort of intermixing as we get a sense of what cars are still working versus not. The other thing I would say is that we have taken the Chargers, while they're not upfitted, there are certain things they can do, so we've given 2 to each zone, so that while they don't have equipment on them, they can be used by the lieutenant for certain, or the sergeant for certain administrative activities. We also are using them as loaner cars in any place where we can for admin duty. So we are actually using, we're probably using 25 or more of those non-upfitted Chargers for things like that. So we are trying. And then this order here, a substantial number of them will go to the zones, and then a significant number, a substantial number will also go to the take-home program. So yes.
Thanks for that. And then in addition to the APD fleet, there's a specific allocation here for 4 vehicles for, in the case of the mayoral detail.
Yes.
So what is how many vehicles are in that program now? What vehicles is that replacing? Just some details on that, please.
I'll let Ms. Burke speak to that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the Public Safety Legal Administration Committee. As you asked about the vehicles that are in for executive protection, these are to replace some very old vehicles that they have as well. And not to give up too much information around the detail, making sure that in the event of emergencies, that the vehicles that they are driving are appropriate for usage.
All right. Thank you for that. However, you may need to get a hold of someone, but I've been told in my ear that we have to hold this paper for the iPro report. So according to that team. So I don't know if you had any information on that, or if you've checked in with them.
The iPro report. I have not been given that information by procurement, but if you give us a second, we can step out and try to find out.
Okay. You want me to just hold off?
They're under contract. All of them are under contract.
The
both vendors.
Certainly, both, particularly the Dodges, with Vacants, there's a sense of urgency too, because we owe them a PO. So we're at risk of losing those 200 vehicles if we don't move it today. So let us step out and
because we can't approve a paper without an iPro. So I will come back to this paper, and we'll move on to resolutions. Councilmember Lewis, you have a question first? Mr. Raymond, Ms. Burks, sorry.
So first, I would like to remove my name from this paper. And my two questions, first one is, does this help get us closer to our goal of zero emissions? Like, are these cars going to be, I know we have the technology out there now to purchase cars that will be closer to our goal of 2030 zero emissions in Atlanta. Are these going to help us get there?
So for patrol vehicles, for the way we patrol at the moment, these are the most appropriate vehicles. They're standard gas vehicles. And so the problem with electric vehicles for patrol is, well, first of all, we use them 24 hours a day, right? So there's no time to charge them. And even if you, ultimately, we hopefully will get to the point where you can do 8-hour shifts. Even within that, there are limitations to range and duty. So in terms of police package vehicles, that's probably a longer discussion on sort of how we do move to sustainability, as we all want to do. In this time frame that we're looking at, these are standard police patrol vehicles.
I'm just also asking that question, thinking about the price of the average of being $59,362 per vehicle. That's the average. Are these cars going to be able to keep with the request of City Council and ordinance that we passed last year of the blue lights ordinance? I know we've been, my hope is that we don't purchase cars that can't have the standing blues.
Yes, so these do have the blue lights on the side that don't flash that you can keep on, so that will be part. And part of the price is, I want to say, it's in excess of $15,000 of that cost is the outfitting. So you have a radio that's several $1,000s, then the lights, then the computers, then the modems, and the wiring harness to connect all those, plus the installation, plus we have to take out the rear seat, put in the cages, and put in the things on the back that contain a prisoner. So there's that cost includes, as I said, in excess of $15,000 of upfit cost.
So while I will wait for the iPro, I do support it. I don't want my name on this because I want to keep with Atlanta's goal of the 2030 goal of zero emissions. And I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to make that amendment.
I'd like to make that, but they ain't even put my name on there. I'm glad they didn't put it. I'm just telling you, don't. I appreciate you.
Definitely raise your hand, and I called your name out, but he's not on as a co-sponsor?
No, he's not. We haven't input the sponsors in the system, so.
All right, we will move on and come back to that once they rejoin us with an answer. Moving on to resolutions, 6 through 10 can be taken as a block because there are settlements. So if you can please read those in.
Would you like to read the settlements before the other items, 3 and 4 and 5?
Okay.
23R3149, a resolution by Councilmember Byron D. Amos authorizing the reemployment of City of Atlanta retiree Timothy Quiller as Deputy Chief of the Department of Corrections for an annual compensation not to exceed $104,860.00 pursuant to Section 3-505B of the Charter of the City of Atlanta and for other purposes.
Motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Vice Chair Amos. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable. Item number 4, 23R3191.
A resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the reemployment of City of Atlanta Department of Police employee Patricia Powell, Police Sergeant under Section 3-505A of the Charter of the City of Atlanta and for other purposes.
I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Boone. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. Item is favorable. Item number 5, 23R3192.
A resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor and the chief of of the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department to enter into reemployment temporary service agreements to be renewed annually with retired or separated employees of the City of Atlanta Fire Rescue Department at their retired rank of sergeant, lieutenant, and captain, and other classification for the purposes of providing public safety services for the City of Atlanta Fire Rescue Department and for the purposes.
Approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Norwood. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable. Now moving on to our settlements, items 6 through 10. You can read those in.
23R 3194, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all bodily injury claims against defendant in the case of Andrew Huggins versus City of Atlanta Civil Action File Number 22 EV 004154, pending in the State Court of Fulton County of Georgia in the amount of $40,000.00. The settlement amount authorizing the settlement amount to be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount and for other purposes. A resolution 23R 3195, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against City of Atlanta in the case of Aldon Kinsey versus City of Atlanta, Civil Action File Number 21 EV 002564, Fulton State Court in the amount of $48,000.00, authorizing said amount to be paid from the account numbers listed herein, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the total settlement amount and for the purposes. 23R 3196, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against the City of Atlanta in the case of Aldon Kinsey, a legal guardian of Morgan Kinsey versus City of Atlanta, Civil Action File Number 21 EV 002570, Fulton State Court in the amount of $6,000.00, authorizing said amount to be paid from the account numbers listed herein, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the total settlement amount and for other purposes. 23R 3197, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against the City of Atlanta in the case of Felicia Mack versus City of Atlanta, Civil Action File Number 21 EV 002567, Fulton State Court in the amount of $13,500.00, authorizing said amount to be paid from the account numbers listed herein, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the total settlement amount and for other purposes. 23R 3198, a resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the settlement of all claims against defendant City of Atlanta in the case of Jaquin Hahn and Shakinas Ray versus City of Atlanta, Civil Action File Number 21 EV 001616, pending in the State Court of Fulton County, Georgia, in the amount of $550,000.00, authorizing the settlement amount to be charged to and paid from the account numbers listed herein, authorizing the Chief Financial Officer to distribute the settlement amount and for other purposes.
Is that all the items?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Motion to approve those. Second by Councilmember Boone. Please prepare the vote on 6 through 10, items 6 through 10.
Vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed.
Yeas, 0 nays. Those items are approved. Now to item number 11, 23R 3223.
A resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee authorizing the mayor or his designee to accept on behalf of the Atlanta Police Department a donation from the Atlanta Police Foundation, 4 2022 Dodge Chargers and 3 2022 Ford Explorers, valued at approximately $281,699.52 for use as additional Atlanta Police Department vehicles in order to augment the police presence throughout the City of Atlanta and for other purposes.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Amos. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Yeas, 0 nays, that item is favorable. Mr. Amon, do we have an update, or?
Yes, the CFO does not believe an iPro is needed for these, nor does several other members in finance, because these are all, both of these are under a citywide contract. Since this is going to FEC, in any event, could we advance it here and then catch it at FEC if that appears not to be the case? Just because I'm very worried about losing these cars.
I'll make a motion to forward to FEC with no recommendation. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Norwood. Please prepare the vote.
Mr. Chair, we need to amend to take Councilmember Lewis's name off. I spoke with the parliamentarian.
Okay, so I'll withdraw that, and I will make a motion to amend to remove Councilmember Lewis's name. Second by Councilmember Lewis. Please prepare that vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. That item is amended, so I will now make a motion to forward this paper to the Finance Executive Committee with no recommendation. Second by Councilmember Norwood. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. We'll hear that item on Wednesday. I'm on FEC, so I'll update Chairman Wan on our action here today.
Great, thank you so much. I very much appreciate
By
it.
then.
Thank you. We'll have it all sorted out. Thank you.
Thank you. So that item has been disposed of. We will now move on to, I believe, item number 13, 22-01109.
An ordinance by council members Byron D. Amos, Michael Julian Bond, Keisha Sean Waits, Antonio Lewis, Dustin R. Hillis, and Mary Norwood, as amended by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee, to amend Chapter 10, Article 1, Section 10-1, to create a definition of security plan, Chapter 10, Article 2, Division 2, Subdivision 1, Section 10-48, and Chapter 10, Article 2, Division 2, Subdivision 3, Section 10-106, and for other purposes.
I believe we have a substitute for this item that does not change the caption, so I'll make a motion to bring forth the substitute. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Amos.
The vote is open. Please vote. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. That substitute is before us. Councilmember Amos, this is primarily your paper. You're the primary sponsor. I believe we received some communication from Law earlier, so I'll defer to you. What is your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Councilmember Amos made a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Bond. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
4 yeas, 0 nays, 1 abstention. The item is favorable on substitute. And was there one more? We do have one more walk-in. Actually, we have item number 24, right?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Held. 23R 3098. We'll need to pull this and substitute. If you could read that in.
Yes. Yeah. It's going to be.
Does the substitute change the caption?
Let me see. No, the caption doesn't change.
Okay, go ahead and read that in.
A resolution by council members Amir Faroki, Michael Julian Bond, Matt Westmoreland, Keisha Sean Waits, Jason Winston, Byradine Amos, Jason Dozier, Liliana Bakhtiari, Alex Wan, Howard Shook, Mary Norwood, Dustin Hillis, Andrea L. Boone, Marcy Collier Overstreet, and Antonio Lewis, authorizing the City of Atlanta to donate American Rescue Plan Act funds to the Atlanta Police Foundation to support the Community Safety Housing Program for sworn police, fire, and corrections personnel in a total amount not to exceed $500,000.00, authorizing the mayor or his designee to enter into a donation agreement with APF to authorize the chief financial officer to make all payments from the accounts listed herein and for other purposes.
You and my understanding is that substitute just changes the accounting strings. So I'll make a motion to approve on substitute. Second by Councilmember Norwood. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable on substitute. We'll now move to our walk-in legislation, ELMS 32023.
Mr. Chair, we need to adopt on substitute.
Okay, so that vote was for the substitute?
Yes.
Gotcha. So the substitute is now before us. So I'll make a motion to adopt on substitute item 24, 23R, 3098. Second by Councilmember Norwood. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
6 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable on substitute. Now to our walk-in legislation, correct?
Yes, Mr.
ELMS
Chair.
ID 32023.
A resolution by Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee supporting state legislation in the Georgia General Assembly that would establish a public safety stadium surcharge for events with at least 9,500 tickets available in order to provide additional revenue for local public safety department and for other purposes.
Thank you for that. Colleague, just some history on this. During the last term, two of you were here. I authored legislation to do a study on such a surcharge to events, and it was preempted by state law, so I went over and had conversations with our colleagues under the Gold Dome, and legislation actually dropped today for such a surcharge to beef up public safety funds available to larger cities in Georgia that have these event venues that handle over 9,500 people. So again, that has dropped today. Some of the sponsors or co-sponsors wanted us, the city, to do a resolution in support of this, so I quickly drafted it yesterday, and it will be, again, as a walk-in to Public Safety and Legal Administration Committee, so it can be heard on Monday at the council meeting. I know we do have Nate Bailey here with AFRD, who has been also working on this under the Gold Dome. So if you don't mind, if you just come up and share some words with us on it and how you do or do not support it.
Nate Bailey, President, Atlanta Firefighters, absolutely support this bill. Councilmember Hillis, actually, when I heard you speak about it a couple years ago, we started doing our research and seeing how much money we could actually bring in from a surcharge. And this would be very significant for our firefighters. Just doing some background on our fire trucks. 20 years ago, it was around $14 million to replace our fleet. And today's money, that's $46 million. So the prices of our trucks and our stations have definitely increased. So anything that we can get outside of our property owners and our voters and taxpayers would be significant. And the bill is actually written very well. It says that the funds have to be used in the footprint of the venues, anything that would respond to the venues. So it's very specific. It would go just to public safety and capital outlays that relate to such venues. So we definitely support it. And I want to thank you for putting in the work and getting it started a couple of years ago. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey, for your work on this as well. So I will make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Norwood. Please prepare the vote. Yeah, Councilmember Amos.
I have one question, and I was reading through the legislation, and you and I talked about it earlier. But as I represent parts of Morris Brown and Georgia Tech as well, would this cover stadiums that are privately owned by the institutions, or what stadiums would this extra tax surcharge cover?
Yeah, from my understanding, is any venue that would, that is meant to hold any, 9,500 or more people. So I believe in the Atlanta area, and I don't know, Mr. Bailey, if you have any more info on this, but it's, of course, Mercedes-Benz. I believe Georgia Tech's is over that capacity. I
think Bobby
Georgia
Dodd
State's
would be in, Georgia State Stadium. Chastain would not qualify, but Lakewood actually would qualify.
And then as you get outside the Atlanta area, Marist Bank Amphitheater, whatever it's called now, I think there's one venue in Savannah.
Savannah's is actually 9,500. That's why the legislation was written to cover theirs. I think Columbus has a 10,000 seat. Valdosta, Atlanta Motor Speedway, obviously the Brave Stadium. This would be a huge revenue source for Cobb County as well. So if they choose to enact it, the good thing about legislation is the state makes it possible, and then through further discussion, if the city of Atlanta wanted to adopt, that would take an actual ordinance.
Yeah, so it would have to come back to us. This just clears the hurdle of, when I referenced trying to pass this in 2018, it wasn't allowed, was preempted by state law. So we would have to take further action. My understanding, this just makes it legal on the state level, and then we could come and put all the fine tuning to it at the local level. Councilmember Lewis?
To be specific, so if a community has a event at Lakewood Amphitheater, would that community have to, that neighborhood association have to be a part of this tax as well?
When we started talking about the actual wording of the legislation, the city would have to provide to the state exactly what the money is going to be used for. So if you wanted to be, fire trucks, police cars, fire stations, they would have to give a detailed report to the state. But it would only be the tickets that are purchased for the venue. So when someone buys a ticket for a concert at Lakewood, if it's $100, they would pay now $103. And those $3 would go into a fund, and then the state would disperse it to the city.
And I'm thinking about like if a community, not where the funds go or what we spend it on, with that tax, are nonprofits or anybody, will we be able to make up like who's exempt from it? Or is there any possibilities for any exemptions? Because I'm thinking about the nonprofits that aren't going to sell 9,500 tickets to any event, but they're going to use venues that have people have more than 9,500 seats available.
Yeah, so I mean, back to, Councilmember Amos's question, all of the fine tuning will be worked out on the local level. This just makes it a possibility. As far as I'm aware, I don't think the
Yes,
bill
that's why
even puts an amount of what the surcharge would be. That would be up to us.
And that would be for y'all to discuss when y'all do the ordinance. You could put the specifics in there of who would be charged and the money, where the money would go.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. All right. So, motion on the floor. I was the motioner. Councilmember Monroe was the seconder. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
5 yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable.
Mr. Chair, we also need a vote to refer to this paper to FEC.
All right, I will make a motion to refer to FEC. Is there a second? Second by Vice Chair Amos. Please prepare the vote.
The vote is open. The vote is closed.
Yeas, 0 nays. That item is favorable. The item will be referred to FEC, being favorable here in PSLA. I believe that completes our legislative agenda.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, if anyone with any remarks, questions, well wishes?
I have one announcement, actually.
Councilman Reynolds.
On the 22nd of this month, Cops and Clippers will take place on ML King Jr. Drive. See if I can grab the location, but periodically our officers get together and provide haircuts to the community. It's Cops and Clippers on the 22nd. Looking for the flyer. There we go. It'll be at the Uppercut Barbershop, 842 ML King Jr. Drive, 30314 from 5 to 8, February 22nd, Cops and Clippers.
I will say, I will be Thursday at the training day for Atlanta Fire Rescue. So look forward to that, and I hope some of my colleagues are signed up too. Councilmember Norwood, you signed up? You're going to? put out some fires?
I have a conflict.
Councilmember Boone, you going to join me?
I'll be there.
All right. Councilmember Lewis.
Also, Saturday is the State of the District, District 12 State of the District from 5 to 7 p.m. at Atlanta Metropolitan State College. State of the District, every single city council person or state rep or a county commissioner, commissioner of a department will be at this State of the District. So if you have questions, it'll turn into a town hall for the final hour. I look forward to seeing folks pack the house. We also have free food and jobs while we're there. Thank you.
Concludes comments. So we are adjourned by unanimous consent of members present. Thank you.